"You are nothing without the karma" are words that Jigen and Isshiki ingrained into the mind of Kawaki so deeply that for a time he believed it to be true to his very soul. Hearing those words over and over for a child who up until that point hadn't been given any true reason to believe anything different is a tragedy. Whereas other children were allowed to grow up with a loving mother and an honorable father who each allowed them to grow into their own personalities and offer words of wisdom along the way, Kawaki was handed a bad hand by fate. His birth father was a former shinobi whose mind appeared to be cracked after the 4th Great Ninja War. He went from someone who people said was considered a great shinobi to being someone who was a drunken father who openly disowned Kawaki. He beat him if he didn't earn enough money to support his alcoholic habits, and was cruel enough to withhold food and water from Kawaki as punishment. For Kawaki, the love of a father meant a fist to the face, a bottle to the head, and still finding it deep within his heart to care about the man who clearly cared nothing about him. He viewed him exactly as Jigen once said to Kawaki. He was nothing, and he valued Kawaki so little that he sold his own son to a complete stranger when Jigen offered to purchase him. For Kawaki, it was such a hard lesson to learn, which is that no matter how much you love someone, their love for you can only be conditional on the value that you provide to them. Kawaki wasn't a normal child, which is why he had to learn a lesson that no child should ever have to learn. A normal child learns early on that their father, their mother, they love them unconditionally, sometimes to a fault. Parents are often the first true unconditional love that humans experience. But for Kawaki, he learned that some love and relationships, they are conditional. First with his father, and next he learned it again with Jigen, that some relationships are conditional and manipulative. Jigen appeared like a savior to whisk Kawaki away from what appeared to be an abusive relationship, one that eventually his father's bottle would hit Kawaki's head the wrong way, and it would eventually kill Kawaki. However, upon being brought to Kara's hideout, Kawaki would learn that this new father and son relationship he had with Jigen wasn't going to be anything like he expected. Jigen purposely took a boy who had nothing to live for, who saw no value in himself, and he promised him that if he accepted him as a father, he'd no longer be hollow. It planted those very seeds for the words he'd tell him later on, that Kawaki was nothing without the karma. Children are often sharper than adults realize. Perhaps it be due to their naive way of viewing the world, but children can see evil that's hiding in plain sight faster than some adults can. And with Kawaki, we see this briefly in Boruto chapter 26, when he's looking up at the children being experimented on by Amato and Jigen takes the time to tell Kawaki that he's one of his precious children. Kawaki didn't know what was going on, but he knew enough to know that this wasn't a safe place. 15 children, likely children who came from very similar circumstances, yet Kawaki was one of 2 children who managed to survive Jigen's transfer of Isshiki's karma seal onto their bodies. Kawaki would at times refer to living under Jigen as being a living hell, not as a safe space, and we've seen glimpses of it. Code was jealous of Kawaki getting the karma. He choked and beat Kawaki out of jealousy. Jigen would beat Kawaki on a daily basis, trying to effectively stomp out the innocence that still remained inside the child body of Kawaki. We saw Kawaki being tortured mentally by Jigen during scenes like when Jigen killed Kawaki's goldfish. You are nothing without the karma. It's a cruel set of words to tell someone like Kawaki, a boy who'd been empty of love and empty of a life purpose due to his upbringing. He never asked to have the karma seal placed onto him, but karma accepted his body, and the karma is what kept him from dying like the other 13 children. A boy who had no purpose, now seemingly had a purpose, but once again he was being set up to be someone who was being subjected to being in a relationship that was dependent on solely the value that he brought to the table. His father needed him only for booze. Jigen needed him because he was an imperfect vessel for Isshiki, and Isshiki needed Kawaki so he could be resurrected into Kawaki's body once Jigen was eaten by the Ten Tails. A boy who had always been empty of love was now a vessel being stripped of his very human emotions, being beaten daily to be turned into a weapon, and the act of being pushed from his basic human necessities. That's very important to understand moving forward. When most people think about human necessities, they think about the basics: food, water, and shelter. However, human beings by their very nature are not meant to be emotionally cut off from others. It's why religious texts like the Bible say God made Eve out of Adam's ribs. It's why in the earliest days of man, people formed clans and packs. At the end of the day, a pack, a clan, a gang, it can also provide emotional maintenance that's needed for the soul that people are searching out for. Man was never meant to be isolated or deprived of love. It's why we biologically exist, to pass on our genes to the next generation, to further the existence of our DNA blueprint. And that's what made the tragedy of Kawaki so much more tragic. Each day that he lived, his karma was being extracted, and more of Isshiki's DNA was beginning to overwrite his own. Each day that he was living was bringing him closer towards a genetic death, where he wouldn't even be himself anymore. And once Isshiki revived, Kawaki's soul would cease to exist altogether. It'd be like he never existed on the planet. For a human, it's the worst possible outcome, because while we do exist for the purpose of passing on our genetics, it isn't our only purpose of being alive either. Life isn't solely about passing on our genetics. The beauty of life is that we're able to leave behind much more than our DNA in the form of our offspring. It's in what we speak, it's in what we write, the music that we create. It can exist long after we're gone. And those things are a reflection of things that we've seen, heard, and emotions that we felt. Humans by nature seek out something to believe in and then pass it on to the next generation, whether it be like in the Naruto world where concepts of the Will of Fire are passed down from master to student, or whether it be a writer leaving behind a messy and sad history about our own worlds so our own children can learn about the struggle of light and darkness that we endured during our times. Because in the end, as humans, it's our job to leave behind whatever traces of life we can, but in order to do so, we have to experience life and gain the answer to what it means to be human, which for Kawaki wasn't something that he was given the opportunity to learn the answer to. He wasn't being raised to be human, he was being raised to be an Otsutsuki vessel, an empty shell waiting to be filled by the soul of a parasitic alien that would take over his body and erase his soul. Being stripped of those very human experiences is what filled Kawaki with the rage that we saw from him when he first debuted in the manga and anime. He wasn't just fighting for his own freedom, to escape from karma, to escape from the Kara, to escape from Jigen, from his destiny as an Otsutsuki vessel. He was fighting for his right to existence of life as a human, and years of being betrayed by others and being beaten caused him to attempt to raise his arms at Boruto and Team 7, who wanted to offer that helping hand that Kawaki so desperately needed. It caused him to run away from Naruto, and when Naruto in the manga turned on his six-pass chakra cloak in front of Kawaki at the dinner table, it filled him with the fear to the point where he wondered, was Naruto stronger than Jigen? But Kawaki eventually stopped running. He stopped trying to resist Naruto because over time he realized Naruto was offering something that he never truly experienced before, a father's unconditional love. There's a twisted beauty to the relationship of Kawaki and Naruto. Naruto, more than anyone else in the village, could identify with Kawaki. He himself was someone who was alone, starved for love, and viewed only as a weapon for a time. Naruto himself was someone who was living proof of what happens when you fill someone empty with love and give them the chance to experience the joys of what it means to be human. He went from sitting alone on a swing to playing ping pong with his family on vacations at the hot springs. Just as Naruto needed Iruka and Tuchi to show him those first acts of kindness on a repeated basis, so too did Kawaki need Naruto to begin filling the body of this empty vessel with something other than the fate of being an Otsutsuki vessel. Jigen had told him that he was nothing without the karma, and now Naruto is showing him that he could have everything in spite of his karma, so long as he opened himself up to establishing those bonds. Naruto taking Kawaki to eat ramen with him was a huge moment that the anime showed us, and it's deeper than some fans realize. As I discussed in my video on why Naruto loves ramen, Naruto eating ramen holds a special place in his heart because it was the first act of kindness that he's old enough to remember. Back during a time where the money that Hiruzen gave him as an allowance, it meant nothing because the people in the village refused for a time to allow him to shop at those stores. It was Tuchi, i.e. the ramen guy, who was willing to allow a 3-year-old Naruto to eat at his ramen stand, where he could at least be guaranteed 3 meals a day and not have to worry about paying until the anger of the shopkeepers towards Naruto subsided enough for Naruto to spend his money there. Naruto tried to offer Kawaki that same level of affection by sharing that ramen with him, to show him that he wasn't a threat and that there were many things in this world that Kawaki had yet to experience. For the first time, Kawaki was being asked by someone what did he want to eat for dinner, because up until that point, food was only something given to him to keep his body from starving. It wasn't something given where you sit down with the family and spend time together and share food. Sleeping in Naruto's office with Naruto, being given something other than a slab of stone to sleep on. It was yet again Kawaki being shown that not all humans were bad. Not all humans wanted something from him or only wanted to be around him because of what he could offer. Kawaki was learning not all love was conditional. While Kawaki was trying to fix a broken vase, Naruto was trying to fix a broken boy who reminded him of himself, of what life could have been like if he'd had grown up in another village and was viewed only as a weapon. He was trying to show Kawaki there was more to life, while also trying to fill Kawaki with faith, which is so interesting and tragic at the same time. Faith is more than just blindly believing in something. Faith is something that can be earned over time. We can tell other people about what it is we have faith in, what we had enough faith in order to act, whether it be a person, whether it be a concept, whether it be an ideal. Whatever that faith is, if it's strong enough, we as humans will fight for it. Concepts are right or wrong or irrelevant when it comes to faith, because what you have faith in and how much faith you have in it and how hard you're willing to fight for that faith, that ultimately will decide the future, because history is written by those who are the victors. Naruto had faith in Kawaki's humanity, and he would be given an opportunity to prove his faith in Kawaki during the battle with Jigen. Kawaki would see how strong Naruto's faith in him was, and it would in turn accomplish the very thing Naruto wanted, which was to fill Kawaki's vessel with something other than the Otsutsuki genetics that were being extracted into his body. Though he didn't realize it at the time, Kawaki's monologue to Sarada, where he spoke to her so emotionally about Naruto in his subsequent battle with Boro when they tried to save Naruto, those were signs that Naruto had been accomplishing his goal with Kawaki. However, as time's gone on, we've seen that Naruto's actions towards Kawaki have had a bit of unintended consequence. Kawaki is still young. He's still a novel that hasn't reached its climax yet in the story, and the story itself can go many ways. However, Kawaki is in a lot of ways just like the flowers that are inside the shop that Naruto and Kawaki visited. Flowers need to be cared for and watered in order to survive. Naruto knew Kawaki needed the same things, to be cared for and nurtured, but sometimes too much water can kill a flower, because too much water at one time can adversely affect the ability of the oxygen to get to the roots. Based off what we've seen so far and where we know the story is heading, some might argue that Naruto might have made the same mistakes as a gardener who overwaters the flowers to the point where the roots can't reach oxygen. Naruto might have given Kawaki too much fatherly love over the span of those months that the young boy could have handled, which is why we've seen signs of that in the manga where Amato and Shikamaru have suspicions that Kawaki is obsessed with Naruto, and it makes Kawaki dangerous, and that's what makes Kawaki so tragic. Due to no fault of his own, he's been robbed of those experiences of being human for most of his life. And during the few months that he lived with Naruto, he's seen firsthand that there are people who want nothing except for what's best for him. But the love being poured into him so suddenly wasn't something he was prepared to accept at that very moment. And yet the tragedy is that we see just how much Kawaki longs for the very things that Naruto's given him the chance to experience. Playing card games with Boruto and the others, to forming the brotherly bond with Boruto, to most notably changing his personality over time, being less quick to anger and slowly growing calmer, but never truly being able to put out the fires that Jigen and Kar started inside of him. Kawaki saw the faith that Naruto placed into him, and Kawaki in turn placed his own faith into Naruto, which is why when Naruto lost Kurama, we see Kawaki's faith in what Naruto represents grow so strong that he began to get impatient to find ways to protect Naruto, which led to him lashing out at the members of Team 7. And then we see it again when Kawaki awakens his Karma Seal when the moment came to protect Naruto from Momoshiki. It brings us to the great irony and tragedy of Kawaki as a character. Jigen told him, "You are nothing without the karma," and Naruto showed him, "You can have everything in spite of the karma." But we see Kawaki struggling with how Jigen raised him and how Naruto tried to show him a different life. We're seeing firsthand how nature versus nurture is at play right here. Kawaki, through Naruto's actions, is being given the opportunity to experience what it means to be human, but Kawaki, by reawakening his karma in the very same way, is proving that Jigen is right. Without the karma, Kawaki is nothing. While it was a power that was awakened out of a need to protect Naruto, it was also a sign that he himself, without the karma, couldn't protect the man that he loved more than his own life, because Naruto represents for Kawaki that road to a different life than the one that he's been subjected to through Jigen and Kar's abuse. In a way, it makes you think of those old Chinese proverbs that said that those who look to the heavens prosper, those who defy it are no more. For Kawaki, his faith in Naruto represents those heavens, and it's a saving grace for him. But ironically, he's trying to defy the Otsutsuki power of karma, at least in how it was intended to be used, which is ironic because that's a power that came down from the heavens, because Otsutsuki are celestial parasites that came down from the heavens and descended onto Earth. The dilemma of Kawaki, the pains of his past, and the struggle to fill his vessel with the answer to the question of what it means to be human makes Kawaki so beautifully broken. It's a beautiful tragedy. However, what do you guys think about Kawaki? How close do you think he is to finding the answer of what it means to be human and filling his vessel up with enough human experiences to save his soul? Or do you guys think his soul is destined to perish?